Hey, are you Zach?
Yes, I'm Zach. How
Oh,
are you?
nice to meet you. I'm Richard.
Likewise.
Hey,
Hi.
Chris.
Hello, hello.
How's it going?
Good.
Going good.
So it looks like we're all in. That's great. Just changing my credentials here so that people know who I am.
Yeah.
So welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this for us tonight.
How's the conference going so far?
It's been going really well. We've had pretty good attendance for the author talk and for the keynote and for the big picture discussion, which we had last week. So I think tonight will probably also be well attended. So I'm excited about it. I'll probably start, maybe 2 or 3 minutes after 7. I'll give a quick introduction. And then I'll let you two take the reins. And then, once we'll open it up for a larger discussion when you're done. Depending on how many people, I know you wanted to do breakout rooms.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
If we're a big enough group, then let's do that. If we're a small group and you feel like that's not, whatever you are both comfortable with in terms of flexibility, if you want to still do it, even if we're a small group, that's fine. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
How's it going?
Great.
Good.
Yeah. Does that work for you, Chris?
Yep.
If we're just a handful of us, that we can just stay in a small group.
Right. And that's what we had discussed earlier on. So
Yeah. So Zach, if we have 20 people, can we just verbally indicate when the time's right? Hey, Zach, can you do 5 groups of 4? And
I think you guys will have. I can do that, but I think you will both be able to do that yourself, Chris. Is that right, Chris Britton? We gave the presenters ability. I'm happy to do it. That's no problem. Just whenever we're ready, just tell me how many breakout rooms you want with how many people in them, and I'm certainly happy to set that up. That's no problem.
Okay.
You should be able to make them co-hosts if you right-click on their names in the participants list also. And this is going to be just a handful of honors directors. That's going to be pretty casual. I don't think if you have to take a minute to kind of figure things out and figure out the breakouts, no one's going to complain. So
yeah, no, these are usually pretty. I don't want to say laid back, but they're not terribly formal. It's really for development thing. It's developmental, informative. So it's if we have to take a second, then it'll be all right. So I think I made you both co-hosts.
There we go.
Okay. Whenever you're ready for breakout rooms, just let me know and we'll figure it out.
Okay. Yeah, we got it now. That's cool. Chris, you want to go first? Do your 5-minute spiel, and I'll do my 5-minute spiel. Or?
Okay, sounds like fun. I'm the new guy on the poll, so yeah, more than happy.
Great.
I think I'm going to jump out just for a minute, make sure the consultant's corner is going well, but I'm going to stick around for at least the first half hour of this, and then I think I'm going to jump into the consultant's corner halfway through. So we'll see you fellas in a few minutes.
I did one of these for ASC and U last week, kind of affinity discussion group, and the opposite in terms of informal. They made me meet with the tech support person for like a half hour a week before, and then all this kind of back and forth the whole time. Yeah, but I get it. I mean,
lot, yeah.
They're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of people.
Sure. I think we'll have a good group. I don't think we'll have hundreds.
Yeah.
We'll have a good group, and the discussions have usually been. I've been to a few beginning and honors. I started directing my honors program in 2018, so I'm relatively new. Although I've been doing some stuff with the honors program before that, but never in the director's role. So.
And how's that going so far?
It's good. I like it. I like the I like the interacting with the students better than some of the administrative stuff, which I imagine is, not a unique position to have. But I'm falling into it. I'm feeling more comfortable with things like recruitment events and managing membership, keeping track of all that, because we could have been doing a better job at it.
Sure.
So I'm still, trying to find better ways to be involved with our institutional research team, who are new, which is good, to help keep track of students through the program and look at, better ways of tracking retention and whether they stop out of the program, do they graduate, like that kind of, the usual stuff that we're all trying to do.
Yeah.
But no, it's going well. I enjoy it very much, and it's been rewarding because, for all the reasons that everyone, like I see students who are game design majors and chemistry majors and stuff that I don't really think about in my day-to-day work, and I enjoy that aspect of it. That's what I always enjoyed about academia in general, is learning about new stuff, and
Sure.
they keep me on, they keep me up to date with what other professors are doing and what they're doing. It's cool. I love it.
Nice. Yeah, working with IR and getting honor students coded properly and then tracking them is a perpetual challenge.
Yeah.
I can't figure out why that is so difficult. I'm trying to figure that out.
I know. You'd think because, hi, welcome. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. So just hang tight. We're just chatting away.
Okay.
Part of it is honors is often not a minor or a major.
Right.
That, depending on the system they're using, it can sometimes have to do with where honors is housed institutionally. Honors never fits into any of the systems. You invite consultants on campus to do program portfolio analysis. They don't, like, I don't know what to do with honors.
Yeah.
And so
One thing what I have difficulty with is tracking students for students that drop out of the program, not even are dismissed, but just say, this is not for me, I'm gone. I want to know whether they're retained, whether they graduate. And once they lose their honors, there's no former honors designation that they can give the student for whatever reason. And so it's very difficult for me to track those students, which I think is, important. And that's been a challenge for us. It's just doing that. Because they're either in or they're out, and that's all they can really ever tell me. But we're getting better, at the institutional level. Richard, let me just, is it Badenhausen?
Yep.
Is that correct? Okay, I just want to make sure that when I introduce
Sure.
you, I've got everyone's name.
Yeah. Yep. Just like Baden-Baden.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Bathhouses.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay.
My people were mostly ministers and brewers back in the day, so I don't know where the bathhouse came from. Who keynoted the conference?
Last night we had the author talk, Cody McDevitt, who wrote, his book was on racism throughout Pennsylvania, and the name of the book was Banished from Johnstown, Racist Backlash in Pennsylvania. It was a really great talk. He went through, a lot of the historical antecedents for race relations throughout the state and of course throughout the country. He gave a really nice author talk last night. The keynote is, I believe, later this week.
Okay.
And you're both welcome to come to it. And I think all of the previous stuff is also being posted online.
Yeah. Thank you.
As well. And I think the woman, Christine Sermiglia, I think is her name. She does I forget the name of the organization off the top of my head, but she does fair housing work or housing access work in the Philadelphia area, if I remember correctly. And that I think is on Friday night.
Nice.
Sorry, there's just so many dates to keep
Yeah.
in my head. So
Western region's meeting Saturday.
oh, you are? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Try and cram it all in one day. You all took a slightly different approach.
Yeah, it's been,
I kind of like.
it's been nice. I mean, some of it is, it's a trade-off, right? If you try to do the whole conference in just a day or two, or, the normal weekend, you get it over with, and everyone's there and they're sort of in it. And then spreading it out is also, it's nice because it gives people more flexibility in terms of, fitting things into their schedule. And so you try, but the trade-off is, of course, losing people's interest throughout those times. Not that, so, you don't know, but we've had pretty good attendance for most of our stuff so far. So
Yeah.
we've
Cool.
been happy with it.
Cool. What's up, Russ?
Hi, Richard. Good to see you.
Yeah, how's it going?
That's good. I was wondering when I'd have the opportunity to see you in one of these events.
Yeah. How's life?
It's good.
Good.
It's been a little weird. I became director of the honors program at Georgian Court this year. So first
Yeah.
year
Well
I'm
done.
here.
Congrats.
And, trying to do that during the pandemic. I'm sure we'll be talking about that. It's made things
Yeah,
challenging, interesting, and all that.
for sure.
But I've found some of the pieces online that you've written over the years, which have given me a good starting point.
Oh, good.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, just trying to help our students get across the finish line these next 3-4 weeks. I mean, that's the name of the game. They're at capacity, so it's just bringing them home. Yeah, but yeah, otherwise things are going okay. Yeah.
We'll get started in just another minute or so, but I wanted to ask, because it's been coming across my desk, is anyone changing or, relaxing some of the honors program requirements for graduation for their students? We don't have to talk about this right now because I want to get started, but it's something that's been coming across my desk that I'm trying to get our faculty to agree to. Because maybe that'll come up later in the discussion, but with everything going on for the last year, it's been tough on a lot of the students. So anyway, I guess it's 7:02, and that's Chris Britton's favorite time to get started. So we'll go ahead and begin our session tonight. Thank you all so much for coming. We are in the big beginning and honors discussion. We have Richard Bodenhausen from Westminster College and Chris Matthews from Southern New Hampshire University tonight to talk to us a little bit about being new to the honors world. So we'll talk a little bit about administration, teaching and learning, and addressing student concerns. We'll get started and we'll open it up for discussion in just a little bit. But of course, since this is, I think, pretty, I don't want to say informal, but if there are questions as we go along, I imagine it's totally fine for anyone to jump in, and we'll go ahead and get started. I think Chris was going to start first. Is that right?
Yeah. Thanks, Zach.
Please.
Welcome, everyone. So I'm Chris Matthews from Southern New Hampshire University. And to be completely transparent and honest, this is also my very first beginning in honors. So I'm excited to be joining you and to be able to learn with you as well. I took over the director's position in 2018, in the fall of 2018. So I've just almost completed my third year. So Richard and I will be able to share with you kind of two different extremes. Richard has a lot more experience that I've been able to gain and learn from. And I'm willing to share with you a lot of my frustrations, what didn't work, what I've learned from that, and what I've been able to kind of really utilize to really move the program to the next level. So one of the things that was really important to me when I took the responsibility to be the director, I came from the School of Business, and traditionally the honors program director was from the School of Arts and Science. And so you had this new faculty member that was assuming a role. And I honestly didn't know anyone in the School of Arts and Science. I knew their names, but I didn't know them kind of professionally. So I'll be sharing some of kind of my learning lessons and stories in getting to know other schools within the university and how we were able to kind of reimagine the honors program. Even during COVID, we're in our recruitment season now, and our recruitment numbers are actually exceeding what they were last year. So we're really excited about that. And I'll turn it over to Richard.
Great, thanks, Chris. And yeah, I'm delighted to be here. And as Chris pointed out, we're in slightly different kind of positions in our career. Chris was being very generous. You know, it just means I'm old and been kicking around for a while. I mean, I've led honors programs at two very different institutions over the past 25 years. One at a good size public regional institution, and then one at a small private liberal arts college where I am now. And I'm currently the founding dean of the Honors College at Westminster, which is in Salt Lake City, beautiful city if you haven't visited us. And that's a role I've had for 4 years. I've been active in the national organization, serving on the NCHC board a couple times, served as president of the organization, as conference chair for the annual meeting in Boston a few years ago. And that service was just super satisfying and fulfilling. I learned so much. We can talk about how to get involved in NCHC if you'd like. My first NCHC meeting was in Pittsburgh in 1995. I still remember it as a new director, where I just really didn't know anything, but was anxious to step into that national community and get help. And you know, I still remember how welcoming everyone was, how much I learned. Walking to the Warhol Museum as part of City as Text. So I know what you're experiencing as you shift into a leadership role in honors, both the positives and negatives, which many of us have gone through. And I thought I would just mention a couple of the negatives and a couple of the positives, just as maybe frames, and then say a few more words, and then we'll work either in breakout groups or we can just go right into Q&A if you want, because Chris and I certainly want to emphasize the discussion part of this this session. So, you know, I think it's worth emphasizing leading honors is a hard job, and there are negatives. You know, you may be it as far as the honors staff on your campus. You know, you are honors, quote unquote. And so sometimes, you know, honors can be a lonely job locally at your home institution, which is why I think regional and national organizations like this are so important to connect you with a network of collaborators. Because of that, because you sometimes are it on campus, it can sometimes be hard to develop allies, but I think that's a super important task. And I'd encourage people to resist the urge to do everything yourself, since not only will it lead to burnout, but it's not sustainable and it's not smart politically, because you need people, you need allies to help you with your work. And it's sometimes hard to get advice from people locally, because honors is sometimes misunderstood on campus. In some cases, there's even overt hostility toward honors. And so that external network is important. I think honors is often also situated strangely in the institutional org chart. It's often positioned in a liminal space, you know, not quite here, but not quite there. And in some cases that can be comforting, because it can sometimes be easy to ignore honors on a campus, but that also can be limiting. And, you know, especially if you have aspirations for your program, I think it's important to lean into the institutional organization and start participating in the regular college or university life. You know, there's a ton of positives. I mean, you all are probably attracted to the work because you get to work with immensely talented and passionate students, faculty, and staff. So, you know, the climate for doing the work can be super inspiring. You know, honors can be a place of great experimentation in the curriculum, pedagogy, enrollment management practices, DEI work. And this is partly a function of the smaller scale, but you often have a kind of nimbleness that's a hidden advantage. And I'd encourage you to think about ways to take advantage of that nimbleness. A third thing is honors is a growth industry. You know, it's one of the few sectors in higher ed that's growing. New presidents will often look to add an honors college as one of their first moves, as a way to raise money, burnish the reputation of the college, look like they're doing something. So it's worth taking advantage of that in terms of how you position yourself. There's, you know, as I mentioned, a robust network regionally and nationally, and I'd encourage you to use that NCHC network and draw on what's an increasingly robust literature in honors education. I'm going to actually put in the chat the link to the NCHC publications bibliography. So that's the two journals in NCHC and the monograph series. That bibliography is up to 88 pages long. So chances are, if you are struggling with a situation on your campus, someone has thought carefully about it and written about it. So I encourage you to use that body of literature. And, you know, finally, being an honors leader is the best gig in higher ed. I mean, I really believe that, and I hope, you know, you have a similar experience and this becomes an extended period of work as opposed to a 1 or 2 year appointment that you then leave. So I thought I'd mention a few things I've been involved in over the years just to prime the pump in terms of topics we might talk about just for a minute. And then we'll ask the group if you all would like to break out into groups of 4 or 5, or you just want to continue the conversation as a whole. Either one's fine with us. The first thing I'll mention is, if you haven't seen it, I worked with a group of about a dozen colleagues nationally on a position paper. I just put the link in the chat on inclusive enrollment management strategies in honors. I think it's really important that honors think about positioning yourself as a leader in recruiting diverse student populations, really interacting with students who've been historically marginalized in higher ed. I think honors can lead in that work if you're intentional about it. And that position paper, I don't know, it's like 20 pages long, has some good ideas. I've done about 20 program reviews at other institutions. If you want to talk about the value of site visits and self-studies, happy to do that. Transition an honors program into an honors college, happy to discuss that process. Things like curriculum reform interest me, DEI work in honors. There's so much opportunity there. And the NCC board's just charged a committee with reevaluating the basic characteristics of honors education. I'm co-chair of that group and have some thoughts about the basic characteristics. Happy to share some of those with you. Anyway, yeah, Chris and I are curious about your questions. Why don't you pop in the chat whether you want to stay as a group as a whole, or you want to break into groups of 4. We could probably do 3 groups of 4. You know, the opportunity to sit with a group for 10 minutes is you get to connect with a smaller group, but up to you all. We got 3 together and 1 fine either way. So 3 to 1, 3 to 2, fine either way. All right, sounds like we'll sit as a group. Yeah. All right. So what would you all like to talk about?
That's a great time to open it up for questions. So if you have a question or if you want to type something into the chat, feel free. I'm happy to get it started. Oh, we have a seat. I got Chris's in the chat. I am like our presenter Chris, I am relatively new. I started directing our honors program in 2018. I'm at Bloomfield College, which is a small liberal arts school in New Jersey. About 1,700 undergrads.
Kate, I see what you posted in the chat related to increasing the presence of underrepresented students in honors. One of the things that I did when I took over the honors program was actually to get rid of the scholarship that was connected to for our honor students. It caused, I figured if I'm going to be the bad guy, I might as well get everybody upset right at the beginning. And then we can just work through the madness together. So I had a vision for the honors program, and I'm like, you know what? I was selected for this position, so we gonna move forward with my vision. And I really appreciated the way that the university sent out the job announcement. So the job announcement was advertised to all faculty on campus, and we were instructed to present a 10-page document basically outlining our vision for the honors program. And we interviewed, we had to interview with the VPAA and members of the Honors Advisory Board. And fortunately, I was selected, and I initially just started out with my vision of really creating an environment in the honors program that was more inclusive. And one of the first things that I recognized is that we had students in the honors program that were in the honors program just for the scholarship, and they had no intention of actually completing their honors thesis and fulfilling the honors requirements. And so I have the reputation on campus to just kind of be in your face kind of guy. We have a small campus, and so kind of good and bad, you kind of know your students. And so I would go up in my first year to the graduating students, and I'm like, okay, you've been getting a scholarship for the last 4 years, and you haven't even started your honors thesis yet. Just so you know, you ain't graduating. And they're like, what do you mean I'm not graduating? I was like, we have given you an investment. We have invested in you, and there's no return. So now you're about to graduate. I was like, something like, you've been taking this money. And so we actually got rid of the scholarship, and surprisingly, it's increased the level of interest in the honors program. So now students know coming in that you're committed to the honors program because of the experience and the honors pathway that's presented to you. And just kind of organically, now the honors program is more diverse than our overall student population, with the number of students of color, the number of students that identify as LGBTQ. We're just more organically diverse, and it just has created this more enriching environment overall.
Yeah, Chris's example is a great example of structural change, which is really what needs to happen, I think, if you're talking about inclusive enrollment management practices. Scholarship's a great example. And the big one, obviously, is test scores as gatekeepers. Not only as establishing floors. I mean, many programs will have a particular cutoff that students have to satisfy before they can even apply to honors. And then, of course, using scores to help shape an admissions decision. And at least in my institution, we don't use either. Anyone can apply to honors. And there's some stealth ways that these scores can actually predetermine who even has access to honors, because typically admissions offices will do name buys, and the easiest way to do name buys is tied to scores, test scores. Now, what's interesting is because no students, or very few students, took test scores in COVID, it's forced institutions to operate differently because they can't do name buys based on scores. So it's one of the positive outcomes of COVID that's going to force structural change. Partnerships with allies on campus, partnering with your first gen programs, your McNair Scholars programs. I mean, there's all sorts of potential allies doing this work on campus. And so putting honors front and center as another unit that is clearly invested in this work is a great way to have all sorts of benefits for honors beyond just diversifying your student body. Another structural change is adding a transfer in option to your program. Your transfer classes will typically be more diverse in all sorts of different ways. Don't just add a program, don't just add a pathway, but add a robust program for those students, both internal and external transfers. I think once you get past some of those structural changes, you need to think about more nuanced issues like how you talk about honors. There are all sorts of unintentional signals that are sent off by your marketing materials, what you're asking students on your essay questions. I think it's very important to model in all your practices kind of inclusive approaches to this work. The value of a climate survey, a diversity climate survey in actually surveying your current students can be really important. Chris was talking about the climate that exists for current students. If you haven't surveyed your students, you don't know what the climate is for students who come from historically marginalized backgrounds. That can generate a whole host of data that will help inform your practices.
Richard, you actually got me to thinking, in addition to establishing kind of some internal partnerships, what I've been very intentional also in doing in establishing external partnerships. So example, with the US Census Bureau. So as students are conducting their research, we now have an official partnership with the US Census Bureau so that students can actually have access to obtaining data from the US Census Bureau, and then they come and do actual virtual presentations with our honor students. So in regards to COVID, that was one of the new things that came out of it, was that now we have these formalized external partnerships that are really allowed the students to kind of dive deeper into their research. So the internal partnerships are also good, as well as those external partnerships.
Yeah, awesome point, Chris. We've intentionally partnered with the LIA programs in town, particularly right up the street at Park City, Latinos in Action. And I'll go up there and just run a workshop on college application, the process, not to bring students to Westminster, but to just help these students think about college. And we have them on campus every fall to visit an honors class. And so these students can envision themselves in a college setting and feel really productive and positive about that experience. And we connect them with our current students. So yeah, great point. Tanya asked about an example of a climate survey. If it were 18 months from now, I'd give you the book I'm editing on honors colleges, which should have an example of a climate survey in there that we did. A sociologist developed at Westminster and used 3 or 4 years ago. Tanya, if you want to email me, I can see if I can put you in touch with Julie. It's just rjb@westminstercollege.edu.
We have another question in the chat about the difference between a pathway and a program for transfer students within honors.
Yeah, good question, Russ. One of the reasons we moved to an honors college model was it gave us more curricular autonomy. We were very interested in adding a transfer pathway. And so basically there are 2 pathways through honors: an honors certificate and an honors degree, which require different credit hours. And what we did was basically require that students have some exposure to gen ed, and then they basically convert the rest of their gen ed responsibilities at the institution to honors, because currently honors students do their entire gen ed, first year honors students do their entire gen ed within the honors curriculum. So that the transfer students can essentially jump on that train and finish up their gen ed requirements. Basically, they take 4 more courses, which is pretty doable for transfer students. Russ, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not, but that's kind of what we have at least.
And I was thinking our pathway at SNHU is a little different. When I first walked into my new office as the honors director, there were just shelves of honors thesis. honors theses, and I was like, who's coming to read this stuff? And so initially I was just like, okay, we changing this because I'm not reading it. So our mission for students in the honors program is to create an honors thesis that you can take with you. Because when you leave, I don't need it. So I don't want you doing research for the honors program to fulfill a requirement. You're doing research to take with you to change the world. And so our pathway for our transfer student, if a transfer student comes into the honors program and has 60 available credits, they're able to complete and design their own pathway by utilizing their courses remaining in their major. And so we have developed this honors curriculum model. We did a student focus group. So when I first started in the honors program, kind of with my business degree, I was like, we need to have focus groups and we need to have like data, like where's the data? And so I actually selected or asked for volunteers from the honor students to be trained on how to be evaluators of the honors program. And in their first year, they conducted a series of student-led focus groups to really give us some valuable data on what the students felt was lacking in the honors program. And the priority, the top thing was lack of communication. The students felt that they just didn't know what to do, what the honors program was all about. And so I heard that loud and clear. And so one of the first things I instituted was an honors academic planner. And so now when students are enrolled in the honors program, they get this lovely book and it lays out for them year by year what they need to do, what the expectations are. And so now it's communicated, and we have to do slight modifications. So I'm working on the next planner for this incoming class, but it provides at least something that's tangible and physical that students can always refer to. And so when they're meeting with me for their advising appointments, I'm like, where's your academic planner? I'm not your secretary. Pull it out, take some notes, right? Because you're going to be referring back to that as we move forward. And so it really provides for more continuity, and it also kind of frees up my time. So now the honor student's like, okay, yeah, I met with Dr. Matthews already. Let me just go back to those notes I took. So that's just important to kind of keep in mind.
That's great. Yeah. And the other piece about the word pathway is it's kind of value neutral. So in other words, the idea is that students are joining the honors college via various pathways, and we don't want transfer students to imagine that their experience is somehow lesser just because they've come in midstream. So instead of assigning them a label like, you know, transfer honor student or lateral entry honor student, we just talk about different pathways: a first year pathway, a transfer pathway. Everyone is joining the community. You're just doing it via different routes.
If I can just say a few things about the question that just popped up in the chat about the admissions process. I was involved in honors for 8 years and did many interviews, and we kind of we stopped looking at test scores as much, and a lot of our questions were community based. As far as what has been your impact on the community before you applied, and what can you give back to this honors community, and what are you looking for from it? And so we were looking specifically for students that, I know everybody doesn't have the ability to interview every single student, but maybe through an essay process, trying to determine what kind of students are going to be very involved and are they going to want to give back. And we tried to create as many volunteer student leadership opportunities as possible, so that as students could move throughout the program, they could take on more and more leadership roles. As we interview students, we could present them with these different roles and say, what of this appeals to you, and what do you think you might actually like to take on? And ideally, if they've done some research about the program before the interview, they could talk about how they wanted to get involved. So like Chris said, we didn't have scholarships either, and I liked it that way, because we didn't get as many students that were showing up just specifically for the scholarship and then dropping off. We wanted students that were going to be involved from day one, and who so there were very few students for me that I met at their interview and then didn't see until graduation. For the most part, they were involved, throughout their entire tenure.
I'm with you on the no scholarship thing, because it generates all the behaviors that Chris was talking about. We have a handful of scholarships only because the big public institution up the road, families will typically visit there, and then come into our office for a visit in the afternoon. And the first question they have is, oh, do you have honor scholarships? Because the other institution uses them quite readily. And because our answer for so many years was no, we would get off track right at the start of the conversation and spend 20 minutes backtracking, explaining why we don't use honor scholarships. So we instituted a few scholarships so that the answer to that question is yes. And then we can talk about all the reasons why a student may or may not be a good fit for our particular program. So there may be a place for just a small set of scholarships that students can apply for if they're interested in that. In terms of Kate's question about, what else does one use? So we do use a number of short essay questions that are attempting to measure a student's motivation for joining our learning environment, which is quite particular in terms of the pedagogy and curriculum. The courses are all interdisciplinary, they're all team taught, they're all run as student-centered discussions. And so if a student is a passive learner, she is not going to be a good fit for that environment. So we're trying to measure that piece. There is an essay question, a separate essay question. They're all thought experiments so that students are put on an equal level. We're not asking about volunteer experience because that's going to privilege a certain type of student, but they're just thought exercises that everyone can do. We do look carefully at the transcript. If there's letters of recommendation, we'll look at those. But ultimately, the question we're trying to ask is, can a student be successful in this environment? We're not necessarily making value judgments about a student's past performance because the settings are so varied. But can a student be successful, and are they motivated to join our community? And if the answer is yes, we want them as part of our community.
Yeah, I would just add to that. One thing we try to look at, our school went test optional for general admissions, not just for our honors program, but it's about looking for potential versus ability, I think. Right. So many students are coming in with previous access to tutors and whatever else that sets them apart from other students that may not have had that access, which is a difference in not necessarily aptitude, but ability and resource hoarding in some cases, rather than what can they bring to a program like ours. And that's what we try to do by having a lot of qualitative metrics. Again, that's sort of an oxymoron, but have some sort of qualitative way of assessing what a student wants to get out of an honors education at our institution, and that's what we try to focus on.
What's causing you all headaches at your own institutions, at least in honors? I don't want to hear about the faculty senate or your boss, but what's honors related headaches you're dealing with?
Trying to navigate the whole thing. I came in as we're doing a self-study. So it's just like, oh, sure, let me investigate what everybody else did and talk brilliantly about that. I'm wondering if that would get me into an honors program.
So Kate, when you say everything, do you mean the scope of the job? Is that what you mean, or?
Well, I guess I don't know the scope of the job yet.
Okay.
I jumped into a moving canoe, so that's cool, and I was prepared for that.
Yeah.
It's having to do, to convince students. I don't have a problem with people applying and picking about potential. I have a problem with students who don't know their potential. and really kind of working on that image of themselves. We have a population of Native Americans, a smaller population of people of color, and mostly a white population. And so I'm trying to work on the diversity, but a lot of the students have never thought of themselves as scholars and have never been encouraged to do so.
Yeah.
So I'm at Cape Cod in Massachusetts.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're serving, Native populations, there's really good work being done at particular places in honors programs serving those populations. University of North Carolina, Pembroke, and Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado. Both those places are run by very experienced honors leaders who would have a lot to say.
I'm going to plug something that came up in our, hi everyone, I'm Kat McDonald, I'm from Monroe College, New York. I do not have a problem with diversity just because I think of where I'm located. My institution serves 80% of our students are Hispanic or African-American in general. So our honors program really reflects that. But one of our colleagues, Julia Fennell, who's at the Community College of Allegheny County, was at our big picture discussion last week. Right, Zach? I think it was big picture. And she mentioned she tried a program at her college called Try Honors. So every semester she has a course where she advertises it as like Try Honors, and there's a minimum GPA threshold. It's like a no commitment sort of thing. And I thought that was such a great idea that I totally am going to steal it. So maybe that might work for you when I heard what you were saying, like considering the population. But I also find that my students, even when I say to them, you have a great you're coming out of high school really strong, you're being offered a scholarship, you should definitely do the honors program. They're almost like, oh, I don't know if I can. So I think even I might try a more non-official approach even coming into this coming fall, because I think that more students, particularly as they're finishing high school in this like weird virtual hybrid environment in some cases, they kind of need that like ease in. So maybe the Try Honors approach would work. I really like that idea. Julie Fennell. So if you guys need to reach out to her, Community College of Allegheny County.
That's a really cool idea. One thing we also do, I work at Bloomfield College, which is a predominantly Black institution. 51% of our student body identifies as Black, and I think 35% identifies as Latino. You can even bring this kind of stuff into recruitment events. So when you have like open houses and recruitment, I bring students from the program because many of our students that come into our honors program were not honor students or don't really, see themselves as honor students. And I don't say that because I think that they've told me this, but I bring my students to these events. And so, the students that are asking questions don't just see, some white guy in front of them. They see, students who they can relate with and ask questions of and see a reflection of themselves. And so I think those optics, they really matter. And it really does create a sense of community and inclusion to show that, we are a very open program for everybody.
Yeah, and your enrollment management team should be more than happy to set up virtual meetings in the evening with a couple of students in your program. Those can be very successful. It's low stakes. Very intimate, and it can make honors seem less threatening or just less intimidating because there's students who've had their experiences who are being very successful and can speak authentically about honors. Part of the problem is just the word honors and the baggage that comes with it. It's too bad we don't have another word for it, but we're kind of stuck with it.
Easier said, I think, easier done. It's probably at smaller institutions like mine where, I am the only honors person. And, I'm not recruiting hundreds of students at a time. We had our biggest class of incoming honors freshmen last year was like 14 students. So we're really small. We're so small. So I could see, like, if you're at a large, public, R1 institution, that might not be as feasible as some of the, but anything that you can do to put a faces to the program and make the human connection, I think also really matters. How are people doing with fundraising? How do your honors programs, or Richard or Chris, how do you bring in institutional advancement and people who are trying to raise money for the college, and how does honors fit into that conversation? And what kind of advice can you give for honors directors like me who want to be part of that conversation but have not had a lot of success, although it might be because of or lack of trying on my part?
I know for me, we did get rid of the scholarship funding, and we replaced that by providing financial assistance as students are completing their honors thesis and the research that they're doing. And so it really allowed us the opportunity to reach out to alumni that had graduated from the honors program. So another change that I instituted was that now students have to defend their honors thesis. You can't just submit it. You now have to defend it, and the students have a committee that they defend in front of, and an alumni is appointed to be on that committee with the student. And so the student is able to get that kind of connection from day one. And so we now have a pot of money that students can apply to go to conferences, to go to buy materials for their research, whatever they need. And so it's actually increased the level of donor engagement. And so we have a special block now at homecoming weekend where we have our honors homecoming. My vision was to have this huge tent on our green space on campus, and so that actually came to fruition. And so the banner that you see behind me here is actually the big banner that I got so we could do photos, and it's different on each side. And so we really got to that level where now the alumni feel more engaged and they're actually able to contribute to the students' research, which opens up job opportunities. So it's a win-win for everyone that's involved in it. It's taken fairly little effort. I think the most time-consuming part for me was just really kind of laying out the plan, building the structure, creating the forms for the mentors to fill out, to be on the committee, putting together the expectations and all of that. But once you do it, it's done. And then it's just a matter of just kind of updating and keeping everyone involved and engaged.
Yeah, I was going to go the same place Chris went in terms of engaging alums. Great idea. And if you want to institute alumni engagement formally, an alumni advisory board is a great way to give your alums something to do. Our advisory board ran with our Giving Day effort this year, and there were 10 featured units in the college's Giving Day. Honors raised the most money, even though we have a fairly modest alumni base relative to like the athletics program that has thousands of alums. And part of the success was that we targeted a programming that was meaningful. We were raising money for student wellness programming. And so I think, it's all about making an argument in that you can show the development office how your work aligns with the strategic needs of the institution. We have a new strategic plan in which wellness is one of the 3 pillars. And so we've always had really good success aligning the work in honors with the larger needs of the institution. That's something honors should always be framing its work in terms of the larger needs of the institution. I think, while past results are no guarantee of future performance, as they always say in investment disclaimers, honor students have, we have such a great story to tell in terms of student achievement. And so I know it's a pain to work with your IR offices, but pulling that data to demonstrate how an investment in honors and the return on that investment is going to tend to be greater than return on investment in other programs in terms of things like persistent graduation rates, in terms of achievement in things that matter to institutional profile. And so collecting all that data, making good friends with your IR people is super important. And then get to know the advancement people. They love to have help from the academic affairs side of the house, people who, are good at telling a story. And I think, learning how to tell a story about student achievement, you have so much to choose from in honors. You have the biggest basket of student achievement on campus. So you are actually positioned best of any academic unit to do fundraising, believe it or not, because you have those stories to tell, and that's what fundraising is. So I was talking to our VP for budget this morning, and she said the only money that's coming in these days is for honors, from donors. So it's actually super fun work if you can get a handle on it.
There's a question from Russ in the chat about COVID and academic probation. I don't know if either of you want to touch on that. I certainly can jump in there too.
Yeah. I have some thoughts about it. Russ, what is your tell us about the probation system that you use in terms of what the threshold is, and if there's time for students to get back to that threshold, and what you're trying to do with your probation system.
Yeah, well, the thresholds are students are expected to have a 3.3 cumulative GPA and a 3.0 honors GPA. The way it's written in the catalog is that they're guaranteed at least one semester on probation if they fall below either or both of those, so that they can work to improve. I believe the sort of practice the predecessor had was to give students multiple semesters. I don't think that she dismissed many people at all.
Yep.
So I came in with this sort of backlog of people who had been on probation for multiple semesters, not really showing any evidence of improvement that see. And then just this year with COVID, students in general are struggling. Certainly at my institution, where we're doing almost all virtual classes, I think it's a similar situation for most of us. And so one of the main things I found myself doing this first year has just been sending out probation letters, keeping lists, responding to notifications I get of students who are struggling. Now we're doing advising, and I'm trying to wrangle students who are on probation to come for advising appointments. And it hasn't been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I just want to know, what other people are going through.
Yeah, I mean, I think the situation you're talking about is certainly happening across the country. And I think conversations with faculty about what's happening in the classroom. But structurally, I have some questions for you about why there's a difference between honors GPA and the other GPA. It sends some interesting signals that, the obvious signal it would send to students is honors is harder. And the question would be, well, why? Why would grading be harder, or why would the standard be lower in honors? So that would be the first thing I would consider is whether you really need two different GPAs, aside from creating headaches from yourself to calculate them. Why not just have a flat 3-hour or whatever you decide the standard should be? The other thing I'd ask is what you're trying to achieve with your probation program. Is it a flag for students to get help, or is it a mechanism to remove students from the program, or just having a conversation with your counsel about what the underlying purpose of of a probation program is. We can give you some clarity about the practice itself.
One thing that we did was just to kind of change the terminology a little bit. So instead of utilizing probation, we just called them breathers. So if I'm recognizing that a student is just really overly stressed, overly anxious, and they're coming to me and they're saying, my GPA is falling, I'm struggling, this remote learning is just not working out, I'm like, okay, that's fine. Let's just take a breather for the semester, right? Just take a breather, just relax for a moment. We're going to regroup at the beginning of the fall semester. So just take a breather for this semester. There's no penalties involved. You're not going to lose your honor status. You're just going to take a breather for a moment. Sometimes with that word probation, students like, oh my God, I'm on probation. And particularly with honor students, the vocabulary becomes even more important. So we just call them breathers. So they're just taking a moment just to breathe, just to reflect, and then we'll come together again and reassess where they are.
We've had a lot of students, not just in the honors program, who have been negatively impacted by the pandemic. And one thing that we're doing is I just wrote up a proposal for our faculty to approve waiving up to 2 of our honors requirements for students for the 2 semesters that we've really missed. They have a student who had COVID. She has pneumonia as a result of that. And normally in every, I know that she's graduating this spring. She would have had she was like the student, you tell everyone who asks you about honors, talk to the student, like she was the face of the program. And so we're trying to get some leeway built into the program just for the semester to move those students through who, at the discretion of the honors council, which is a number of faculty, including myself, who oversee, certain aspects of the honors program, just as a way of recognizing how, frankly, crappy this whole year has been for everyone. And I think it'll go through. I don't know whether other people are considering doing similar things for their students, if not, removing requirements or relaxing them in some way. And in terms of grace periods or probation, we've sort of put that on hiatus for right now. Students are informed, but I haven't made any real decisions about, you've been on probation, your cousin or whoever, passed away from COVID. I just don't feel.
You're frozen up, Zach. I don't know if you can hear us or not.
Zoom doom, the doom of Zoom.
What else are people struggling with?
I've been in honors now for a long time, but I wanted to come in and see how everything was going in here. But I don't know if anyone else if anyone else feels like they're doing honors as like, they're the person for their college in honors, but then they have like other responsibilities and things that get piled on top of them that make honors maybe sometimes fall out of the focus. Like you want that to be your focus. And that's something that I know when I'm trying to mitigate, like going virtual. They like gave me additional courses, and my college was like, oh yeah, with the pandemic and working from home, and they kind of found like ways of justifying it. But now I'm trying to work my way back to bring honors back into the focus because, to your points, Richard, before, I really think it is a great academic gem for our college, and they really need to start marketing it more to get funding and all of that good stuff. But I don't know if anyone else experiences that and ways that you're trying to kind of bring honors back to the forefront, not only in terms of your job duties at your college, but just to make the college see it, for the value that it's worth.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, people have ideas about Catherine's question.
it's a tough one sometimes. Well, what I've done to mitigate that, and I'm scheduling a meeting to talk to the woman who actually founded our honors program. So I find that, it's changed hands sometimes, it's changed hands from like different academic leadership from over the years, that at least in the years that I've been running the program, which has since been 2012. And wow, it's almost 10 years. Okay, anyway. So and again, things change and things get shifted around. But what I've done is I've done some research in terms of really bringing forward, because then the other thing that I said in the chat earlier is that I'm considered the coordinator. So I'm proposing a new director position I'm going to pitch that to the person who founded the honors program. And in addition to kind of our comprehensive program, which is more liberal arts based and anybody at the college can take it, I want to help the college also build out honors departmentally and different things. So that's an approach that I'm taking, in addition to, also talking about, scholarship and research and elevating those tenets of our college's mission. So that's the tack that I'm taking right now. I'll let y'all know how it goes over the next couple months. Zach said that his internet died. So we might, so
No, I'm back.
He's back. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for stepping in. I appreciate it.
Well, no, the conversation's been full. I gave them a stumper of a question though, so I'm going to stop talking.
Well, Catherine, if I'm an external consultant and I arrive on your campus and I stop faculty and staff, in the lunchroom and say, what are the 2 or 3 things that the president and provost care about? What are the answers to that question?
Diversity, graduating students, and excellent retention would probably be the things that the faculty are going to say to somebody who's coming through, like a Middle States Commission or something. Sure.
Yeah, and so honors can have a good story to tell with all those things, and so helping administrators understand how honors can be central to helping them get what they want can be a great way of suddenly getting the provost very interested in your work. Now that can cut both ways, of course, but that's been my experience, that the minute your interests align with those of upper administration, you will find people paying attention to you and sending resources your way.
Yeah, so that's plan. I've had a lot of success with it, but I think this year has also been a challenging year, and the college has tried to kind of squeeze as much out of everybody as they can, and so now it's about getting it back, because I think that we're going to be seeing a return to more normal, and I want honors to come back into the forefront that it was in prior to the pandemic. So.
The other side of this, your very good question, is the neoliberal university will squeeze as much out of its personnel as it can, and one should not be afraid of simply walking away if the demands have become truly unreasonable. I actually quit my first honors job. That's the best decision I ever made. I know the institution regrets it to this day. that I just asked for a pittance of some help with some resources. And they're like, no, you're doing fine. I was like, okay, well, I quit. I'm going back to English. It's a terrible decision by the institution, but sometimes you just, you have to walk away, because the institution will take as much as it can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the move that's definitely like, like the last resort move, like,
of course.
Because, I know that I bring value that nobody else can bring, by running the program that I run. And again, it's just, it's being strategic, but if anyone else is feeling that way, you're not alone. That's why I brought up that story. Jack of all trades and then some, right?
Are there any other questions for either of our two presenters or any other topics that people would like to bring up? Time for about a minute left. So
I know it's crazy to think that an hour's already gone by, Zach, right?
I know. I just thank you again, Richard and Chris. This has been really, really helpful. I certainly learned a lot. I'm going to think about changing my vernacular from probation to breather. I really like that idea and suggestion. And I really do appreciate both of your contributions. This was really, really helpful. And if, you can always send me an email, but I see Chris has put his contact information in the chat, so feel free to reach out to him or to Richard if you have any other questions. But otherwise, thanks again for coming. And I hope to see all of you at our future events. This is going to be
Zooming around on Saturday. Saturday's our big day.
Yep.
And then there's a happy hour at the end of that day, guys. So no shop talk, but just fun stuff at the end of the day.
Yep.
And make sure that you check out all the resources on our honors page, because there's lots of things for your students to get involved in with NRHC. We're looking for student representatives. We're looking for other people to run for our board. And we also have a call open for our undergraduate journal, Illuminate, and I'll put that in the chat. So thank you for all the hard work that you guys do in your individual honors programs. You probably don't hear that enough either. So thank you from NRHC to everybody here. And we're so lucky to have you. And thank you to Zach for moderating on behalf of the board.
Thanks again, everyone. Have a great night.
Have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Good evening.
Oh, well, that was fun.
That was fun. I think it went well.
I think it went well too.
Sorry,
Richard is
I don't know what happened to my internet. It blew up on me at those minutes. So
I have points in my day where I also get that low saturation signal, and my Blackboard is trying to reconnect, and it's the worst feeling in the world, because you're just I need to get back in there.
It's very frustrating, yeah.
But I think maybe we should head over to go back into our portals, because they wanted to maybe do that recorded thank you thing really quick.
Okay.
That video things.
What channel is? How do I get it?
If you go back to your portal,
back to the portal, okay.
just go into Consultants Corner, and I'll meet you over there.
Cool.
All right, cool.